Welcome to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where we feature top leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry with your host, Drew Hendricks. Now, let's get started with the show.
Drew Thomas Hendricks here. I'm the host of the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where I talk with leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry. Today's episode is sponsored by Barrels Ahead. At Barrels Ahead, we work with you to implement a one-of-a-kind marketing strategy, one that highlights your authenticity, tells your story, and connects you with your ideal customers. In short, we help wineries and craft beverage producers unlock their story to unleash their revenue. Go to barrelsahead.com today to learn more. Today, I'm super excited to talk with Bill Wilson. Bill is the CEO of Wilson Creek Winery in Temecula, California. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for being on. So, Wilson Creek, it's the pinnacle in Temecula, but it all began way back in 1996. Let's tell me about that.
You just gave me goosebumps because when we first started this mindset back in 1995, and then put the plans moving forward in 1996, we had no idea that A, we'd have this much fun, B, reinvest this many dollars, and C, be this much in debt. But we get paid in happy dollars. But basically, I was not happy with what I was doing. I was in the financial world. I followed an eccentric millionaire that turned out to be just eccentric, and I got involved with a financial analyst, and I'd go to work hating my life. So when that kind of came to a close, I asked my best friend what I should do for a living, and he says, I know exactly what you're going to do. There's a small winery for sale down in Temecula, and I've got some restaurant experience, and you guys are probably the nicest family I know. I think we could make a go out of it. So we came down here. First of all, I called up my parents and said, what do you think? You guys are moving up to Solvang. Why not move down to Temecula? Not knowing that they've heard of Temecula. They go, oh, we love Temecula. We go down there for golf retreats all the time with some of our clients and everything else. Interesting though, but we don't have any experience in the wine world. And I said, well, you used to make rhubarb dandelion wine in your bathtub in Minnesota. They said, that hardly qualifies us. I said, yeah, but don't worry. Remember, mergers and acquisition, when we're buying somebody's business, we'll know more about that business in 6 months of due diligence than that guy knows today, because he's still stuck in his old ways. And they said, well, still kind of sounds crazy, but what does the rest of the family think? So my brother is he's the realist of the family. He's an ordained minister doing church planting up in Sacramento. When I made the phone call and said, if there's going to be a deal killer, it's going to be him. But here it is. I ran the thing, and he's like, his answer back to me was Jesus' first miracle. And so I got over the religious hurdle.
Yeah, that test.
Yeah, that was a big one. And so he says, what does our sister think of it? And I go, she loves Chardonnay. She's living in Solvang right now. This will be slam dunk. So when I talked to her, she was like, Temecula? Where the hell's Temecula? If we're going to do it, why not Santa Barbara? Why not Paso? Why not, Napa? It's Temecula. And so she was the deal killer at first, but
Temecula is far different in 95.
Oh yeah. But the beauty of Temecula is, we've got this little wine country out here. We were the 14th winery. First of all, back with the story, the more I wanted to buy the gentleman's business, the more he didn't want to sell.
Wow.
In that business, we call it a circle jerk. He just wants people to, let
tell
him know
how much
he's worth and everything else. And we walked in on what's called a stealth move, when you just show up to see if, it's really as busy as he says and business as good as he says. And he had his arm around two beautiful blondes at 4:00 in the afternoon after having a couple glasses of Chardonnay. And he was like, oh, the Wilsons are here. Come on in. I looked right over at my dad and I said, he's never selling. And sure enough, he didn't. He's responsible for 5 other wineries being started here because they came out to buy his, and he wouldn't sell. And he finally sold and regretted it the day he did. So anyway, make a long story short, We did some research on Temecula, and there's 25 million people within an hour and a half drive of this location.
Mhm.
And at the time, 24 million people had no idea Temecula even existed. We had bumper stickers that says, "Where the hell is Temecula?" And so now, after spending millions and millions of dollars and being involved in media campaigns to visit Temecula Valley and the Winegrowers Association and everything, I'm still proud to say that only 22 million people still have no idea Temecula exists, or they think that we're that old school, small, mom and pop. But, we came out as the 14th winery and kind of proved that knuckleheads or people in the business that had no reason for being in the business could make a go of it. During the research, as anybody that might think about being in the wine business, the research bore out that there's three components in the wine industry. You got to grow the grapes, which is biology. You got to then, once they're grown, you got to pick them and make it into wine, which is chemistry, completely different from biology. And then once it's in the bottle, now you got to sell it and market it, which is completely different from biology and chemistry. It's called marketing. And the research says if you try to do two out of the three, you will screw up one of the two, if not all three. So I'm like, well, I don't know how to grow grapes, but it's in my blood as a farming over the generations. My grandfather had a farm in Iowa. I don't know how to make wine, but I'm sure willing to learn. But I know how to make people feel warm and welcome and comfortable. And so, in part of our research and working with other winemakers, they're very shy. They're very not wanting to speak to anybody. And I'm like, okay, I know where I'm going to shine. I know what I'm going to do different. I'm going to be approachable. I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be in front of the people. So our concept was 8 family members, 1 girl Friday, and have a contract vineyard manager and a contract winemaker until I got my legs underneath me. And now I've got 274 girl Fridays and 8 family members. So, it's kind of crazy, the growth, that we hit. And as you well know, growth can kill you. And our biggest problem is we're too busy. We're out of space. We don't have enough wine. And you try to forecast 3 years out and you miss it, in 2. It's been a absolute joy. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's frustrating all at the same time. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. You touched upon the hospitality part about it. And at the time, like going back to 95, I was selling wine up in San Francisco back in 95. And we hadn't really even heard of Temecula, even though I grew up in San Diego, and my parents' family are from the Ontario area, and they used to go hunting down in Vail Lake back when it was still private land.
Yeah.
So we kind of just knew it as just another area. And I was so surprised to learn Temecula in 95, but coming in there with that hospitality thing, you guys set the tone, because Temecula has a much different vibe than say Paso or Napa or Sonoma. Correct. And there is that hospitality driven vibe.
Yeah. When we came out here, because we're in hospitality, because, we threw parties in high school with our parents in attendance, we threw 2 a year. We charged $3 for the kegs. And, my parents would probably be in jail today if we did the same thing. But, the 70s were a little bit different, and early 80s. So, parlay that into the 90s. And, there's 13 other wineries. They're kind of sleepy. They're retired school teachers or otherwise coming out here. Callaway was by far the biggest, and it was owned by Ely Callaway. And then, but nobody was doing the let's make wine fun. Let's take it off the snob shelf, so to speak. Is really, as you were well aware back in the 90s, it's have this, and
kind of shocked the world with the almond champagne.
We did, and but that was very popular back in the 60s. It just went away, and they brought it back, and we brought it back, and it just kind of went, wow. that hit us. Again, it's a wonderful thing, and it's a great story of how that was that whole product came about. But if you want me to go into it, I can. But
I would actually love to hear the story on that.
Well, this is my version, okay? Everybody has their version. My version is when we were getting ready to open, and it took us far longer to get open than we thought. We were going to have a grand opening as the Y2K New Year's Eve party. So in working with some of the other wineries, they tell you, where to go get your sparkling wine is from up north, and slap a label on it, and it's all good. You can have it for your weddings and events, no big deal. You won't make any money off of selling it retail because, it just is what it is. I'm like, okay, well, we went up there and called up there and said, could you send us some samples? They sent us some samples, and my wife was like, yeah, just nothing really sounds appealing to me. So call them up again and send some more samples, and again, she just was, well, if I have to choose, I'll choose this one. So she chose that one. We had our Y2K party. 125 people showed up. We were amazed. We weren't even open. It was a warehouse. It was funny. It was kind of like, I look back on it now and I giggle. But about 3 months later, or 2 to 3 months later, my wife goes, did you really ask them if they had something different and unique that nobody else had? And I said, I sure did, as any good husband would. I said, do you want me to call up and ask right in front of you? And she goes, absolutely, as any good wife would. And so I called up and said, hi, Lisa, this is Bill. Do you have, and I'm staring at my wife, do you have anything that is totally unique that nobody else has? And she says, yes, we're working on this new product. And my jaw dropped. My eyes went, oh. I'm like, oh, I got to eat my words now. And she goes, we got this thing called almondage, and it was popular in the 60s. I said, well, send me some samples. And so she sent me some samples, and hey, Mikey, she liked it. I was like, wow. She goes, this is unique and different. I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess it is. So I said, so we went around creating a label, and I said, why don't you send me 10 cases? That should get us through until TTB approves our new label. Because we were hardly open. We were just neophytes in this whole thing. And the 10 cases came down Friday at 3, sorry. And by noon on Saturday, the 10 cases were gone. Employees were grabbing, family was grabbing, everybody's grabbing them. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening here? So we ordered a whole pallet, 55 cases. Now, for a small winery that was only going to do 1,000 cases a year the first year, 55 cases is, 5%, okay, of your production, gone in a week. And we went, wow. And it just had a generic label on it. So once we put our own label on it, we went out to a couple of tasting events, and, I'm kind of not new to the world, and I got all the giants around me, and I'm pouring this crazy almond champagne that was being able to call at the time.
Yeah. And
nobody's in front of me, right? Nobody's there. I'm having to get people to come taste me. At the end of the event, I had a line out my place, and nobody had anybody at theirs. And that's been kind of the way it's gone for years and years. Every time we go someplace that doesn't know it and we start tasting it, people come over. I now apologize to the people to my left and to the right, saying, hey, I apologize for what's about to happen. They're going to ask you if you have the almond champagne, and it's us. And sure enough, this one guy, I tracked in 10 cases to this one event. Oh. And the guy looks at me and goes, I have done this for the last 10 years of my life, and I've never gone through more than a case and a half max. And I said, well, I just didn't want to run out. Sure enough, man, my line was out, and he was pissed. He left in the middle of about 2:30. He just left. He just pour these out, and just left. And so that was the start of it. We're like, we got some crazy here, and we really do.
It's a little bit of that irreverence that it was just making wine fun, and it was almost a little bit way ahead of its time. Like now we're starting to see a lot of experimentation, and
correct.
in wine and different blending with different fruits and different types of fermentations.
Yeah.
But you guys were one of the first that I remember doing that.
Oh yeah, by far. And then, we were being asked to create other flavors, or well, put it this way, other wineries were trying to find the next almond champagne. And my sales director was like, we need to add more to our thing. I said, no, I don't want to take away the momentum from the almond. Until finally, okay, we added the peach and the orange, and now we've got 6 different flavors. And also the other,
yeah, so you have a coconut.
Yeah, we have a coconut nui. That started because we were going to do some distribution in Tahiti, and found out that there was a 256% tax out of France and out of Polynesia tariffs.
Oh,
So, but if you make something with their own product, then you can bypass that. So it was kind of the coconut extract from Tahiti, and we made a vanilla as well. And I'm like, what am I doing this for? There's 16,000 people in Tahiti, next to nothing. But I was enamored with Tahiti at the time, so it was fun. But anyway, all these other not flavor companies, but all the alcohol companies were going with flavor vodkas, flavored Bacardis, now flavored whiskeys. Everybody's in the flavor game. And then White Claw comes out. We were ahead of the curve, and now we're getting trounced by White Claw people. But that is what it is.
Yeah, it really came as a wave about 3-4 years ago, and it
just was one of those disruptors. It's like, what's White Claw? And when you got guys drinking White Claw, you kind of got to do the head tilt. It's like, what? Not just a chit drink. So yeah, same thing with the almond champagne. Is guys drink it, and they like it, and even some of the red wine drinkers go, for what it is, it's not bad. I prefer to drink red, but in a celebratory situation, and I have to drink champagne, why not? So it was crossed genres, it crossed palate, likes and dislikes. So it's really helped get a lot of people started in wine that otherwise wouldn't. And we get a lot of people out in Temecula that have never gone wine tasting before. They've never, and we don't care where you are on the wine spectrum, whether it's Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hills, where we all started back in the day, or whether it's Chateau Neuf de Pop. Wherever you are on that spectrum, it's okay. And in the wine spectrum, everybody's trying, or it's just gravitating to the next level. As our appreciation of wine gets more and more, you learn more and more. As you learn more and more, you go higher and higher on the scale. Once you have a good Cabernet, it's hard to go back to a mellow Merlot. Once you get a good Pinot, it's hard to go back. Once you get a good Petit Stripe, and so we just want people to jump on that wagon, and we'll educate and train and teach all the way up to the upper tier and the pinnacles of wine.
Yeah, so some of your upper end options are phenomenal. Yeah, doing a great job there. Stepping back to like 95, when no one knew where Temecula was, how did you get people in the tasting room? How did you launch it?
Well, we launched it by going out to every wine tasting, every charity event. We were your wine sponsor. We were your whoever we could pour wine to, and said, come visit us, come visit us. And then when people did, we just loved on them. It's like you just come in, and we don't just say hi, welcome. It's thank you for coming. You're saving my life. It's a big difference when you got 100% of every penny your family has invested in this. The difference between us and 95 and everybody else, even to this day, is they all made their .com millions or their lawyer millions, and then they now spend for their ego a winery. Well, we did this as a family, being able to live together, work together, and be closer to each other. And we had 4 generations at one point living on the property. Now we just have 3. It's just pretty cool, It's I get to work with my brother, and my sister's around. My wife is right here. Good news, you work with family. Bad news, you work with family. But we just went every single weekend. We're out pouring wine at the various events up and down the coast, and in San Diego specifically, and then broad-based over to Orange County, and then where there was some business out here. There was some people coming out wine tasting, and we just hoped to get them. And when they came, they went back and they told their friends, and so on and so forth. And the rest is history. It's and with this whole fast forward to the pandemic, LA discovered us in the pandemic. Before, we were not known by LA all that much. Yeah, well, LA was locked down and we were not.
Yes.
And they came out here. It was an hour and 15-minute drive from LA, no traffic because nobody was on the. And they came out and they go, "This is fantastic. This is amazing." And I'm like, "Yeah." And they went back and told their friends, to where it became in 2021. We were so just being overrun. We had an hour wait just to get in the property, and because we had no place for anybody, let alone 6 foot of separation. We set records, and that was good. But the bad, it was just too much. Now it's kind of with the $6.50 of gas, and still people are on the road. It's calmed down to where it's not quite as crazy, but we've also built more space. We have outdoors, we have indoors, we've got the sit down, we've got the private library reserve table. We have something for everybody. People say you can't have something for everybody and be successful. I said, we have something for everybody, but this is where the bulk of the business is. We know that, but we have something for everybody. People come out and well, come on up and taste some 5-year-old Petit Syrah and 5-year-old cabs, and you too will understand that. Hey, we make some pretty darn good still wines, not just the flavored foo-foo wines.
It's the boots on the ground's the common theme on wineries that have actually risen to a level of your stature and your production level. I remember talking to Michael Houlihan from Barefoot and how he was able to build his. And it was just pounding the pavement, getting in the getting the placements.
And with almond champagne, nobody knows what that is. Is it made from almonds? Is it not? Almond milk is out there. So is this almonds? What is it not? And so it's so unique and so bizarre that we knew we had to get it on somebody's lip. We call it liquid on lips, LOL. How many lips do we get liquid on and introduced for the first time? Obviously, we've been around Temecula, so we hardly do anything here in Temecula anymore of all the charities, other than what's on our property. But we go to, San Diego, Orange County, LA Wine Fest, and Riverside, and all this good stuff. So another thing is we do weddings, and weddings were another avenue that nobody was doing weddings in wine country, and we knew that a bride's asking 150 of her closest friends to come, and 125 of them never been to Temecula, never heard of Temecula, and they come out here and they go, "Wow, I had no idea this is a real wine country. I'm going to go back and talk to Uncle Steve and Aunt Rose, and we're going to come out wine tasting. We're going to come to dinner and lunch," and that's what they did. So it's been a true grassroots effort on all fronts.
That's a great vision to incorporate weddings. The bride and groom are going to always remember their wedding day, and they're going to pass down that story.
Well, they come back with a little bambino and say, "This is your fault," I'm like, okay. And we're an integral part of their lives. We have one couple, our very first couple that got married here, comes back every June 2nd and has lunch here, and we cheers every time and say, here's to another year. It's amazing. And I tell all the brides, I go, we're simpatico here. And she looks, I go, well, you want every one of your 150 guests to walk away going, oh my God, that was one of the best weddings I've ever been to. The food was awesome. The wine was great. The facility is wonderful. I want the same thing, because they're going to go back and tell their friends, oh my God, I was just at a wedding. The food was great. The wine was fabulous and the setting is awesome, and come back and support us. And she went, you're right. I go, you don't get that even at the Ritz-Carlton. We want you to continue to buy our product on the shelf. We want to continue to have you part of our wine club. We want you to continue to be part of us, not just come spend a room night with us. So,
and a lot of that's really, I guess, not dependent, but Temecula's business structures really, and the codes and laws have really been favorable for you to grow in this hospitality sector, versus like Napa, you can't even order a glass of wine at the winery, let alone have a wedding there.
Yeah.
It's very hard to make it a hospitality type of visit.
But it works for them too. If they didn't need to attract the hospitality, and they have it within the cities. So it's there. It's just not at those outlying wineries. Otherwise it would be chaos with that many wineries up there. I get why they put a moratorium on all of that and grandfathered the Visituis of the world that have, one of the best little picnic gardens ever, and that's absolutely fantastic. But, out here, that's what we were able to compete on, of giving them something all in one package. You can come here and have beautiful lunch, have wine tasting, and, spend the night across the street in a hotel. It's got more to just come and wine tasting.
Sure.
And it was protected, as you said, back in 1984, they put a whole I won't say a moratorium, I'll say they put restrictions on building homes, because Temecula was just growing so rapidly in the home sector that they had to protect wine country, and people were ripping up 100-acre vineyards and putting 20 home sites on it. And so we further revised that and continue to revise that to make sure that, if you are doing weddings and events and restaurants and all that you have a sizable enough property to absorb the parking and to house the people, and still grow 75% of your property planted in vineyards, because this is a whole vineyards first mindset. And some people push the envelope, I get it, but for the most part, you got to grow the grapes, make the wine, then you can do all the other stuff.
Made it a destination. Over the last 22 years, it's changed dramatically. Where do you see the Temecula Valley going in the next 10, 15 years? I know there's a tremendous amount of traffic right now. It's
I see it becoming more legitimized and a little bit more respected. Whether I, was part of the, you're just a almond champagne party wine country, to, hey, no, we've always made world-class wines. It's just some of the wineries out here didn't. And, but right now what's happening is some of the bigger guys, us included, are like, okay, we want to be up in that 95 point, 100 point reds. And to get there, we have to spend money, not just on our hospitality, but on our wine production, our grape growing. And so we specifically at Wilson Creek have one of the best vineyard viticulturists in Greg Pennyroyal. He's a plant agronomy researcher coming from some really high end. And, he's like, well, vineyards are somewhat simplistic, as far as a plant goes. I'm like, okay, well then get us some better fruit. And he came back and says, they're not as simplistic as you think they are. There's all sorts of dynamics to it, and the soil and everything else. And I go, yeah, I know. But he's gone into this whole path of regenerative agriculture, where sustainability is not enough. Everybody's talking about sustainability, but if do you want to sustain an airplane nosedive? No, you want to reclimb out. You don't want to just sustain a negative void of nutrients and atmosphere and microorganisms. So he's gone on a bent with that, and it's turning into better grapes. And then my winemaker, I've given him the tools to make better wine, and better equipment, better barrels, better everything to make that better wine. And it's hard to pump that much money back into the business every year. As you know, you grow and you make more, you need more equipment, and you buy more equipment, and you're just constantly putting money back into this business. And I went to my accountant. I said, when am I going to start making some money? And he goes, when you stop growing or you sell. I'm like, well, not sure that's going to happen, but just knowing that, we brought in our executive coaches and our family coaches to help us, better formulate a real strategy and not just be a hobby business. That we're a multi-million-dollar business.
Sure, 75,000 cases a year.
Yeah, and plus. So it's a real deal. And with 274 employees, I better have all of it arranged. I've got 7 direct reports, and the exact thing that I was kind of getting away from is circled back, and here I am as the CEO of 274 children, right? But it's again, I got great people, and that's what makes Wilson Creek what it is from my parents down to our janitorial service and dishwashers, everybody in between. We hire the twinkle in the eye. I can teach you everything else. I can't teach you to be happy and positive and upbeat.
Yeah. Full team effort. Talking about viticulture for a second, because the touring through Temecula over the last 10, 15 years, there's a ton of experimenting going on. You can't really going from winery to winery. Even within the wineries, there's 22 different varietals. And whereas you go to other regions, they've figured out Napa, Cabernet, Chardonnay. You go over, here's Zinfandel. Have you where do you see Temecula's microclimate settling in as far as varietals?
Very, very interesting. We back in '96, they came out with the Rhone Rangers and all that, and we were pretty much down on that same Rhone parallel as far as weather related, in the Mediterranean climate, which you ask there's 50 wineries out here right now, probably 52, 54, whatever. You ask those 50 winemakers and viticulturists what grows best here, and they'll each come up with a different one. And so we have a climate that is conducive to growing all sorts of different ones. Okay. So that is an edge that you take a negative that we haven't come up with our grape, so to speak. I'm not sitting here saying that we can grow the best Cabernet and we're going to go up against the Napites of the world. Why beat your head against the wall? We're going to make a great cab, but it's not going to be Screaming Eagle. Okay, I'm not disillusioned to that, but at the same time, our Petit Syrah is fabulous. Our Viognier is world class. So some of the off varietals that nobody's heard of, unfortunately, it's all about the ABCs, anything but Cabernet and Chardonnay, but they always buy Cabernet and Chardonnay. So you got to have Cabernet and Chardonnay, otherwise you'll go broke. But you have all these other things, and what this area affords people to do is come out and taste some of these varietals that are fairly inexpensive, and try some of the different wines that they otherwise wouldn't try and aren't able to try when they go to Napa. You got Chardonnay, you got Cabernet, period. And then the rest, you got this block, and you got this vineyard, and you got this one, and this one is a blend of all threes. And, I'm like, I'm tasting Cabernet, right? So what I see is over time, Temecula will come into that, hey, we have this Mediterranean climate. We don't have to worry as much about frost. we've got this great soil here as long as we nurture it and take care of it and don't strip it of all its stuff by disking and everything through the regenerative agriculture. And we got the Rainbow Gap that brings this breeze, and we got the desert that pulls in all this cool, moist air at night. We have a 30 and 40 degree differential between a 100-degree day and a 65-degree night, and grapes love that. So we're growing, all sorts of different grapes that are fantastic. And so I think that's a plan for success versus a negative. So that's just me.
I like that answer. I really like the answer. I think that fits for lack of a better word, the Temecula vibe. We're just boundaries and just doing what's fun and feels right.
Yeah. And we can all plant what we feel is our favorite wine.
Mm-hmm.
My wine by far favorite is Petite Syrah.
Mm-hmm.
Big, inky, stinky, it's not for everybody. I have a Napite that only drinks Napa Cabs, and he's like, oh God, Petite Syrah again? I'm like, yeah, try this one. he just won't like it ever. So that's fine. But I do like the different wines that we can grow, and everybody else grows out here. Sangiovese grows well out here. Barbera, Tempranillo, Alicante.
We got some great Tempranillos from the valley.
Yeah, all these different wines that nobody's ever heard of.
Mm-hmm.
I never heard of before I got into this business.
Mm-hmm.
You only hear of Cabernet, Chardonnay, and Merlot got screwed over by the movie Sideways. So,
oh yeah,
the death of Merlot and the rise of Pinot from one damn movie.
Yeah, it's amazing what happened. So 22 years into it, or a little more, hindsight being 2020, what would you have done differently?
I don't know if I would have done anything differently, because knowing now, I would have built it bigger earlier. But again, got to go back to 96. The numbers didn't make it that way.
Yeah.
Now people like South Coast are coming in with and the new one down the road, Bolero. They're spending $65 million. Like, I don't have $65 million, and I'm not sure I've got the friends and relatives and anybody else that's willing to give me $65 million. So, but yet he was the one that half developed Temecula, so he's made a lot of people millionaires out of growing Temecula and Murrieta to what it is today. So he was able to go to his bank and raise $65 million. A lot of that was potential EB5 money, which is money out of China, and that dried up. So that's why it took him so long to get it off the ground, because he was going to build the big, or he wasn't going to build at all.
Yeah, and, I am surprised at some of the size of some of those wineries the last time I drove through there. Those are not small operations.
No, and I'm just shaking my head going, okay. And either way, I sit back and, somebody, just this weekend, I was sitting upstairs and they go, look at this. Did you ever think that it would be like this? I go, hell no. I had no idea. It just has happened. And by a sheer need and demand we did this. And it again tingled in the arm. It's still I'm mind boggled and blown away at what we're doing and how we're doing it, and doing it with people we love to do it with. And that's the key is, I love my employees. I love my guests, and it's a lot of fun to do what we do. As I said, we don't get paid happy dollars. I mean, don't get paid in the big bucks, but maybe my kids someday will be able to sell it and take it over. But I sure do get paid in good happy dollars and a lot of good hugs. And don't get me wrong, I'm paying the bills. I'm putting my kids through college. I'm doing okay. Trust me, I'm doing fine. But I got friends that are making gobs more money than me, working way less. And I'm like, oh well. But they're not having as much fun as I'm having.
Oh, absolutely. In the pre-show, we talked about kind of how you need to lead with your heart. And I think that's what really has been the key to Wilson Creek's success. Money came, but it was the heart that led it.
Yeah, I was asked by a guy that, to come up with a quote for, a quote book that the guy wrote. And the quote I came up was, you got to follow your heart. If you follow your pocketbook, you'll walk backwards. You follow your heart, your wallet will follow. And I had a mentor back when I was 20 something years old, trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do. He said, if I gave you, and this is back then dollars, so like in today, to anybody out there, if I guaranteed you $1 million a year and you could do anything on this planet, anything you wanted to do, what would it be? $1 million a year. What would it be? Guaranteed. Is it rafting? Is it fishing? Is it writing stories? Is it a podcast? If you love doing it, you will make that $1 million. Do that. Don't do what you don't love to do. I can tell you love doing this. I can tell you love it. And when you love it, people gravitate to that. And when you have fun, they have fun. As long as, you're going to work on this, you're going to manipulate it, you're going to take it. You're not just going to put it out there, because you love it. So that's exactly my thing to everybody else. Do what you love to do, and let your pocketbook follow your heart.
Well, that is a great quote. I think that tough to say anything more after that. So where can people find out more about Wilson Creek and yourself?
WilsonCreekWinery.com. Very simple. We have a great website, WilsonCreekWinery.com. Come out and visit us. We're just off the freeway, 7 miles off the freeway. It's easy access. Come out and see for yourself what we've built here, and the energy that is here, the love and the compassion and the heart and the positivity that is here. It's amazing. It's contagious. And people come in and go, there's a different vibe here. Can't sure put your finger on it. They say, Bill, what is it? And I said, I don't want to figure it out. I don't want people to know, you can't give them your heart, right? So the secret to success is just continue to love what you do and let everything else fall into place.
Great advice. Bill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Drew. It's been fun. Appreciate it. Anytime, please come out and visit it. And let me know when you do this time.
Oh, I will. I won't secret shop you.
Hey, love it. Love it if you do. I want to know. So if anybody wants to secret shop and call me, there you go. WilsonCreekWinery.com.
Sounds good.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks for listening to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.